Good afternoon, LinkedIn, and welcome to this LinkedIn Live. My name is Emma Monroe-Harris, founder of Found&Chosen, and today we have all-female squad leaders on this call, Lindsay Light and Paola Pacino. Good afternoon, ladies.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
So the topic of conversation today will be why, Bryant, you made it.
I almost ran away. I didn't want to break up the all lady cast here, but
well, we are very happy for you to tumble in.
This was all planned, by the way. If you were wondering over there, it was all planned. We rehearsed this a few times, right? Perfect timing, Bryant.
You guys must have done that without me, so kudos to you.
Always, yeah. This is what I couldn't miss this topic. To be honest, I could not miss this topic, so I'm sorry.
And it's our last LinkedIn Live for 2024, which is a little scary. But the topic for today is why ABM is the program that sales teams should be obsessed about in 2025. It's so often we see marketing and sales teams in what I call argy-bargy land, but ABM brings it all together and delivers the most amazing prospect to customer experience available, as long as everyone's working together. And an important part of that is sales teams being huge proponents of ABM. Before we dive into that, let's get a little personal and talk about what are our get-tos, team, as we round out the year. I want to hear the good stuff. So Bryant, let's kick off with you. What's your get-to right now?
Oh man, well, I get to reflect on a challenging but successful year, both in personal life and in business, and just to reflect on. I get to reflect on the gratitude that I have for the team members on this call, the companies that I work with, and just really the excitement that I have for next year. And I don't want to ignore this year, but I get to reflect on this year and get ready for next year. So I'm just excited.
Applying the lessons. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Thank you, Bryant. Paola, what's your get to in summary Australia?
Yes, you can tell from my outfit. I'm not sitting with you guys over there. I get to switch off, which I rarely do. And if you had asked me a couple of days ago, I would have said, no, I get to a lot of actions. But in the past 48 hours, I realized how much I need this break for my brain. I get to empty my brain because I feel next year, straight away in January, really, I'm gonna refill it up with a lot of exciting and vibrant and insightful things. I know they're coming, so I need to empty this. That's what I'm getting to do for the next few weeks. Yeah.
Emptying your mind on the beach in Australia over Christmas, like what better get to is there? So I'm so excited for you. And then Lindsay, what's your get to right now?
Well, as much as I hate to be a copycat, I think I'm going to give myself permission because Bryant sort of nailed it. I also just am going to, be able to reflect, and I get to head into the next year with a happy heart and feeling so grateful for everything that 2024 has offered and feeling really reflective and enthusiastic about 2025.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing, and looking forward to continuing to partner with each of you in 2025. We have some fantastic things that we're focused on for next year. But for now, my get to is we have two sayings in our household. First of all, get to, and now the kids use that against me. You get to drive me to the football game. You get to help to go to Costco to do the shopping, etc. So that's an interesting turn of phrase that or use of the phrase that I wasn't expecting, but at least they're listening, right? And the other saying we have in our household is squeeze the juice, and I get to squeeze the juice out of this break. So wishing everyone, our team and out there watching, the best for the holiday season and the start of the new year. Now, on that note, let's roll up our sleeves and talk about why sales should be demanding ABM as part of the program for growth drivers in 2025. Lindsay, I'm going to start with you because you've sat in the seat of a salesperson, an account executive, in businesses that have not used ABM and those that have used ABM. Tell us about that experience.
It is vastly different. So I, as an AE in the seat of someone who was not using it and at the time didn't know what ABM was, spinning my wheels as one does toward quantity and toward, just hitting a high number of KPIs, a high number of touch points to reach those KPIs, to try to reach an output, right? And try to, make sure that I was casting as wide a net as I could possibly cast without really having much direction. And at the time, that seemed appropriate. That seemed like we knew that was the right move, because the higher volume that we could achieve with our prospecting, the better. It wasn't viewed as something that was unproductive. And so then when I landed in the seat as an AE who did get to take advantage of ABM and reflected on my time as an AE who did not, obviously that was a very eye-opening thing to have to experience. So obviously then I flipped that script and understood that it could be a much more concise process, right? When we are using data-driven insights to understand who we are reaching out to and why. And not only that, but what is moving the needle for those prospects? How do we speak the language that is leaning into what they're raising their hand for? So all of a sudden, you go from having to do 200 touch points and maybe get, however, 2 meetings, to doing a fraction of that, to set 5 to 10. So, I mean, the smarter, not harder turn of phrase was probably born from ABM.
Absolutely. It's almost annoy them into submission, right? Yep. And I love your analogy of casting the net wide and just doing as many touch points as possible to annoy them into submission. Whereas ABM as a salesperson allows you to go, okay, I need to focus over here and I need to fish over here. And it's this type of bait that this area wants, and it's this type of bait and temperature of the water that this area wants. And that's where I need to focus my attention. Oh, this one over here has gone cold. Let me look at the data and work with marketing to warm them back up. Right? And find out what the problem is. Paola, what's been your experience with sales teams using ABM? And do they demand it? Do they understand it, etc.?
Thanks for the opportunity. I've had some amazing experiences with sales team members who were themselves the promoters or advocates internally to an ABM program. And then I've had other salespeople that needed a little bit more convincing. They needed, their hands to be held. But then throughout the process, we managed to get them on board with us. As soon as even the most skeptical senior salespeople saw results and saw the change and yet all the advantages that Lindsay, you mentioned in their own team members, the time that they were saving, how efficient they were becoming, how highly targeted. As soon as they saw this change internally, then those were the same skeptical salespeople who came to us. So they went to the CMO asking, can we replicate the same in my other region? Can we do this in Japan? I've seen you. This is true story. I can't name clients, but we ran one account-based marketing program. It was a one-to-one in Singapore. And then It went extremely well. And the same, it was a global organization. Obviously, people talk within the organization, which is what we want. And then the next day, the CMO called me saying, Paula, we have a problem. Please, let's talk about this. Now I have Middle East and Japan on my shoulders because the sales guys talked between each other. And they're coming to me asking me, I want more. And I thought those are the problems I want you to have.
Yeah.
And as soon as she found the budget, we ran added to account-based marketing programs in those regions, Middle East and Japan. So yeah, look, what I can say is that the salespeople that are initially more skeptical, those are to me the ones that are more exciting to convert. I don't do easy. You will know this by now. So the easy clients where the sales team is already on board, of course I work with them, but when I like a challenge to solve, and it's really satisfying to see that I've moved the needle, that ABM has showed that it makes a difference, and once they are hooked, they can't go back to the old way of doing sales.
Absolutely. And we actually see an uptick, Paula, with salespeople moving to other brands, right? Not just other regions, but other brands, and then stamping their feet and going, why don't we have this program? Which is also incredible to see. So thank you for sharing that global experience. Bryant, what's been your experience with speaking to sales team and leaders about ABM programs?
Well, my introduction to ABM programs was actually from a sales leader. A new sales leader took over the CRO position and met with the marketing team and said, listen, this is a new way. Now, this should date myself a little bit, but this is a new way that we can use technology and we can use personalization. And when I started to see, all I needed to see was the roadmap of, okay, here we're going to prioritize our prospect database based off of their fit in the customer profile and the ideal customer profile. And then we're going to just go after, this was my favorite part, we're going to go after these few to penetrate. So I went from having to market to thousands of unknowns to hundreds of knowns. And all I needed, that was all the information that I needed to really understand, like, oh, this is how this is going to be impactful. Then when we started to layer on the technology and really getting in deep to the personalization for advertisements, outreach, and then re-engagement campaigns, I started to really believe, and still to this day, like, this is the way this is supposed to work. This is the way that we use technology, we use data, and we warm the leads that we want to get. We know where their status is in the pipeline, or know how we can re-engage them and get them back in. So that was my first introduction into ABM many years ago, and then applying this into new organizations. It was a very easy sell when I started mentioning that, hey, it was a salesperson, it was a sales leader that showed me the way here. Yeah. And after being able to show the capabilities of ABM, show the impact not only to the AEs, but also to those who are responsible in creating those performas and those models, and that are signing up their entire resources and organizations to follow this tactic. That it really started to take shape. And in each instance now, it's more about, hey, we're doing ABM, here are the expectations, and let's go do it. And honestly, the biggest challenge these days is now continuing to refine now that list of 100 to the list of 10, and to let those aggressive and excited salespeople know that, hey, this is the way it's supposed to work. You should be getting, higher quality leads, higher quality conversations, and honestly, affecting the bottom line in a way that drives that higher customer value, lowering the cost of acquiring, all those nifty terminologies that the C-suite seems to only speak in.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's been a grading transition from, hey, let's spray and pray, to, oh wow, this is available, to, yeah, guess what? This really works, and this is how we need to do it.
Did you just see the note that I just wrote down, Mariah?
No.
I wanted to get each of your reactions. Now that we've worked in ABM for so long, I wanted to get each of your reactions around spray and pray methodologies.
Mm.
Like my anxiety level raises immediately. Paola, how does that terminology work for you?
Look, they're wasting their budget. It makes. I was a head of marketing for most of my career. And then to me, the first thing I see when I hear this is like, oh, that's all the marketing budget wasted. If we could all stop and pause. And I know it's not always easy, especially if you work for a big enterprise and things they're demanded really fast. So you think as a CMO, as a marketing professional, I need to prove something. I need to do something quickly. I need to act. It is really hard to stop and pause. So yeah, it makes me feel like you guys are wasting your money. If you could just go back a couple of steps and just sit in the room with the right people, at the very least, sales and marketing, and align on the strategy, on the objectives, and do all the beautiful process that we know before we even get to the tactics. That's going to be a much better use of your employees' time, but also the marketing budget. That's the first thing I see is the marketing budget that gets wasted.
Yeah. And this comes back to the pressure as well, as to like they want this dial that you can dial up, right? And spending more dollars on media and spraying and praying is not necessarily the right strategy, especially when it's not paired with ABM, right? ABM means that you can dive into the data for each account and allocate the right budget for that account rather than just allocating a budget to everyone. And then the platforms, this is diving a little deep, but then the platforms just push that budget to those that are consuming it more, right? It doesn't force those platforms to force budget to show impressions against the accounts that you actually want to do business with. Brian, you brought up the spray and pray to begin with. How does it make you feel?
It makes me feel dirty. It makes it what I often would reply to, or how I'd often reply to the request of, hey, do we need to be spending more money, or we got more budget? What do we need to do with it? Was I always wanted to be able to answer, well, when do you want the money returned back to the company? Yeah, because I can go out there and I can take your $10,000 and go get a bunch of search terms or get a bunch of clicks, and that may mean you are getting your sales motion intact and there is a pipeline almost immediately. Or if you want knowing that that good sales can take time, then what can I do to invest now so that it's returned later and it's more impactful, of higher value? I always wanted to answer that question, because from the C-suite side, they're thinking in many different timelines. They're thinking about, how do I keep my salespeople hungry this week? How do I make my quarterly goal? How do we hit our yearly revenue numbers? So if you can, as a marketer, be able to effectively address their need specifically to those timelines, then not only do you showcase a stronger understanding of the business's needs as a whole, but you can be far more effective. And you can't do that with just spray and pray. You have to be able to know who's engaging, who's not. Can I allocate these resources? Are there ones closer to the goal, closer to closing, that just need a little bit of help, a little bit of extra effort? Or are we okay with Q1? Can we start investing in going after our Q2 targets now? And it allows you, it does those couple things. Of one, it drives a better alignment between sales and marketing and the company's goals as a whole. And two, it specifically positions the marketing and sales teams to execute in tandem based off of those shared goals, right? It seems like a dream, but it's a reality when you have a good ABM program running and all of the things that we've talked about in previous calls, as well as this call, all firing on all cylinders. So spray and pray. I've got standing up on the back of my neck. I'm almost ready to say, no, I'm not going to spend a dime until we've got this figured out. So that's kind of how I feel.
Absolutely. Lindsay, from a salesperson, sitting in the salesperson seat, as you have done, and you explained the differences just earlier in the call, but when it comes to spray and pray, how different does the workday, week, month, and quarter look like when it's a spray and pray methodology across both marketing and sales versus specific and targeted?
Well, Brian posed a good question. He posed it a little bit differently than I do, or than I did. One of the things that I would pose to my prospects was, if I plant a seed today for you, do you expect to be able to eat next week? So it's a similar concept, right? So, and that kind of got people to understand how realistic are my expectations. And so it's it is that setting very concerted guidelines around what are our timelines and how are we going to set ourselves up for success, not only from an ROI perspective, but from a partnership perspective. Because if I set you up with unrealistic expectations right now, just so that I can sign my own, sign a contract with you and hit my own revenue goals, but then churn you in 30, 60, 90 days, I've also shot myself in the foot. And honestly, that is another thing that I would actually say to the person that I had sitting at the table with me. So I would very much try to be as transparent as possible and ensure that I was never entering into a partnership with under false pretenses. And so that concept of spraying and praying, I just knew that if ever that is how I was entering into those partnerships or those contracts, that they'd be gone, and that I was setting them up for failure, but I was setting myself up for failure, and I was going to have to then do another 200 sets of outreach in the following week because of the way that I conducted my business.
Got you. That's super interesting on the longevity of the spray and pray conversion versus the ABM conversion. And that's a really, really valuable point, which we probably haven't touched into our messaging enough as a whole. So thank you for raising that. The next piece that I wanted to touch on before we wrap up for the year was, so sales can demand ABM, and you may need to bring your sales team partners, so you're the other account executives, along that journey. And here's a little insight into what to expect. Everyone for the last 12 to 15 years has been focused and working, hired for and trained for working leads. For those of us that are of the age that prior to that lead focused and marketing automation focused era, that had to go and knock on doors and pick up business cards and do the footsteps, basically, love ABM, right? As salespeople, we love ABM because we're from this era. For those that have only worked sales for the last 12 to 15 years, it's a different muscle to work. And you will be so excited with ABM at the beginning, but 6 to 8 weeks into a program, where the rubber hits the road, that's where it's going to get a little bit more difficult, because you will realize as a salesperson that while you've still got leads coming in, but you now have marketing qualified accounts that are telling you you need to focus here to connect with this fish, and you need to focus here to connect with this fish. You still need to do the work to catch the fish, right? And so we tend to see that everyone comes in at the beginning of an ABM program super pumped, but those that have only worked in sales the last 12 to 15 years, who are more lead focused in your hiring and training, it's a little bit of a culture shock to know that, okay, yes, ABM is amazing at working together between marketing and sales and knowing where to prioritize, but you still need to fish, right? I'm sure we're all smiling. So we can all resonate with that. But I just wanted to tell that story to go, yes, sales should be demanding ABM programs in 2025. But for those of that have only worked in the last 15 years, please understand it's still not an easy pathway, but you're going to be getting leads and marketing qualified accounts and know where to spend your time, which will make your job easier.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it for the end of 2024, team. Thank you so much for partnering this year. It's been a blast.
Sure
Yeah.
Paula, enjoy your Christmas on the beach.
Thank you very much. You too, guys, on the mountains.
In the mountains, in the snow, wherever we are. Appreciate each and every one of you, and we'll see you in 2025.
Yep. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.